Hello everyone, and welcome to Biopedia. We discussed biomes during episode 78 of the podcast. Today we will discuss a related topic in the form of the habitat. In my quest for a definition, there were 3 dictionaries, 2 of biology and 1 of zoology, which broadly agreed with one another. In essence, the broad idea is that a habitat is a physical space where specific organisms live, which is distinguished by its biological and/or physical characteristics. One of these dictionaries, the Oxford Dictionary of Biology, is more specific in terms of biological characteristics, in that it only mentions the plants in a region as having an impact. A habitat can also be called a macrohabitat, with smaller microhabitats within it. Each of these microhabitats will then have their own set of environmental specifics. That seems straightforward enough. However, isn't this fairly similar to our definition of a biome from a few episodes ago? A 1939 paper quotes a publication from 1916 in stating that the habitat controls the biome. If I compare to our previous discussion of biomes in episode 78, the distinction appears to be that biomes refer to communities and the environmental conditions they inhabit, whereas habitats consider individual species and therefore appear to be smaller scale. Basically, the habitat and the biome are both influenced by environmental factors. The difference is the scale of the number of species we're considering in our definition. All of this seems nice and neat. However, it seems that the definition wasn't always so clear-cut. Writing in 1922, Professor Richard Henry Yapp noted that habitat as a term had not been scrutinized as much as other terms, despite being an old and well-used term. This is because the term had more or less been taken for granted. At the time, nobody had yet done a thorough examination of the term habitat, and there were multiple ways of defining it. R.H. Yapp studied the literature and concluded that the term had multiple features associated with it, including being associated with a particular place, conditions being uniform, the term being focused on individuals, and changes taking place within a habitat. These first 3 seem broadly similar to our modern definitions discussed at the start of the episode. At the end of his paper, Yapp split habitats into 4 groups. The first of these was a successional habitat, which refers to plants within the habitat changing, as per the process of succession which we talked about back in episode 39. The second was communal, which I suppose would fit with the modern concept of a biome, in that this refers to a community of plants rather than considering any particular species. The third was individual habitats, which referred to individual plants and seems to align more with the modern definition we used at the start of the episode. The fourth category was partial, meaning the habitats of plants in particular points of time or in their development. Yapp was talking about habitats specifically in the context of plant ecology and was writing in the early 1920s. However, it seems to me, at least upon my initial examination for this episode, that the term habitat was being distinguished from biome at this point in time. Still, you can see the echoes of the modern definition in what Yapp is discussing. Yapp was born in 1871 and would die in 1929, so you can see that we are still quite some way from the modern day in this part of our discussion. The idea of a muddled literature continues in later work. More specifically, a 1997 paper examined 50 papers published between 1980 and 1994. This work found that 47 of their subjects used the word habitat. However, just 5 of these used the term in a way consistent with the definition the authors used. The definition used here is that a habitat is the resource pool or characteristics of a given area which results in a particular organism occupying that area, which includes the organism reproducing and surviving. Again, you can see the theme of individual organisms being considered, a particular spatial area, and the traits that make up an area as distinguishing it. In 42 articles, or 89%, the definition used was incomplete or else mixed up with another term. In 82% of cases, the authors did not define use of habitat, choice of habitat, preference in habitat, or how available it was. In other words, the authors of this 1997 paper noted that the words associated with habitat were not specific in these cases. Hall et al. Pointed out that the risk was that such vagueness would be alienating to the general public because of downstream vagueness in public matters and in the context of the law. My 3 dictionary sources were published in 2004, 2019, and 2020. Although there were some parts of the definition left out, and/or differences in what biological characteristics were considered between sources, it seems there is broad agreement as to the term in the modern day. That's it for today's episode. As always, thank you all for listening. Feel free to get in touch at the show's email address for any questions, comments, or topic suggestions for future episodes. Until next time, have a great week, everyone.